I mean, the opportunity to create all of these digital attributes now that, are beyond what Google has asked for, required, or could read for all these years is really exciting too. And that's been, probably one of the lowest resource projects we've worked on that relating to AEO. And probably, in my opinion, probably the highest impact.
Welcome to the Retailgentic podcast, where we explore the intersection of retail, e-commerce, and AI agents, which we call Retailgentic. Our mission is simple. We are shining a bright light on the new agentic AI shopping megatrend, which will disrupt the trillion-dollar digital retail market. The stakes are high. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Perplexity, Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Anthropic are all fighting to be the consumer AI shopping agent winner. There are going to be some tough decisions for online brands and retailers to make. What happens to checkout? How should payments work? Should you continue to invest in retail media networks? What does the world look like when over half of your traffic is not from humans, but from AI agents? These existential questions are the tip of the iceberg. On this podcast, we're talking to industry experts, analysts, and influencers to get answers to these questions, identify trends, and best practices. This is Retailgentic, your podcast partner in navigating our AI shopping agent future. And now here's your host, Scot Wingo.
Welcome to this episode of Retailgentic. I know I say this a lot, but this one's really interesting. We invite a lot of people to come on the pod that can't because they work in big companies and they're very, the big company is very concerned about, talking about agentic commerce, revealing their strategy. They view what they're doing to be very strategic, so they want to be publicly quiet about it. But one of the most, when we talk to listeners and viewers like you want practitioners. So it's been very hard to get practitioners on the show. So I was reading an article about agentic commerce, and this one executive, his name came up a lot, and she was sharing the best practices of what they do. So I took a shot and invited her on the show, and she said yes. So I'm excited to welcome Jennifer Peters. She is the director of DTC. That's the part we're going to care about most. And then MarTech and Digital Compliance at OLLY. OLLY is one of the you've seen them before, I'm sure, and it's a CPG company. And she is very generous, sharing the best practices that she has discovered in this role. I learned a ton from this conversation, and it's very validating to, about in September of last year, so let's call it 6 months ago, which in AI time is 10 years ago, but 6 months ago, I put out the framework of agentic commerce optimization of some of the things you should do. You've all seen the stair-step diagram there, where it's kind of like, make sure your site's crawlable, make sure that you have done your basic attributes and beefed them up, add some attributes, make sure your reviews are getting in to the engines, and then make sure you have a frequently asked question, and then beef up that frequently asked question. And it's really cool to hear someone actually doing that in the real world, and it really driving a lot of impact for the company. So there's a lot to unpack here, a lot of best practices. She's like many people that are from the Silicon Valley Bay Area. Jennifer talks fast, so you may not want to speed this one up if you usually do, but if you can process the information that fast, that's fine. So I think you're going to really enjoy this. It's very, very strategic and practical and tactical at the exact same time. Here is my conversation with Jennifer, the director of DTC at OLLY. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Welcome to this episode of Retailgentic. My guest today is Jennifer Peters. She is Director of DTC, MarTech, and Digital Compliance at OLLY. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
We haven't had the pleasure of meeting before, but I was reading an article about all the cool things you're doing, and I said, I've got to get her on the podcast, and you were very, very kind to take my cold outreach and agree to come on the pod. So I very much appreciate that.
I don't know if it's cold outreach when everybody knows who you are. It's more just like an exciting day,
We weren't friends yet, but now we are. So you never know how folks are going to react. Well, awesome. Before we jump into and I know you're I could just tell from the article you can you're a hands-on type person, which I love. That's what's fun about e-commerce is we're not super high level execs. You have to be hands-on in our world and like understand how all this stuff's wired together. But before we get into the metal, give us a little bit about your background. How did you? How long have you been here, and where did you work previously?
Sure. So I've been at OLLY a little bit over 5 years. I came on after the Unilever acquisition, so I did not live through that. I came on kind of mid-COVID. We've changed a lot, even in 5 years. We're only 11 years old, so sometimes it feels like that, and sometimes it doesn't. But before that, I was at an agency. I'm a Shopify developer, so I was working on lots of different stores, building e-com experiences for different brands, most of them in the CPG food space, like shelf-stable food space. So it was a lot of fun. Got to see a lot of weird problems and strange products and new challenges. But before that, I did a couple other different things. I was a director at Cokesbury, which is like a church supply company in Nashville. I was a director of DTC e-commerce and marketing there. So that was fun. And I was just telling you earlier, like we're old-timey channel advisor customers, even with a original contract that was done via fax. So
wow, I probably signed that one. If it was by fax, I'm sure I signed it. Yeah.
I wish I had it still. I don't, but I've been in the business for a while, worked on a lot of different brands. I feel like this maybe is the most exciting time I've seen yet for D2C with everything agentic and everything AEO and everything changing week to week. I think we go into this business because we don't want to be bored and we like to learn constantly. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And did you pick up, you kind of threw casually in there that you're a Shopify developer. How did you pick up and sharpen your Shopify skills?
Well, I got tired of developers telling me no or that it would take 6 months to do something. So I'm self-taught. It was like before the days of Claude and OpenAI, but am I the greatest Shopify developer in the land? Probably not, but I'm pretty functional and built a lot of stores. And I enjoy it because it's a lot of problem solving, a lot of, one of the things I do on the side, I do replatform a lot of brands off of legacy platforms onto Shopify. And I really do enjoy that because I do feel like Shopify is the democratization of e-commerce. Anybody can do it. Now, if you work with an agency that makes your store so complicated that you can't do it, that's something that personally bothers me. So my kind of bread and butter is building stores that brands can manage themselves.
I'm going to use my predictive skills. I'm going to hazard a guess that OLLY's on Shopify.
We sure are. Yes, we are.
Whoa, how about that? I'm pretty good at this.
Can you believe it?
Toby Lucky would be proud. We're going to go on a little side quest here. And so we're in the little Shopify side quest. Have you now connected your Claude and your MCPing over into Shopify? Or you're like leveling up and you're in kind of AI God mode with this thing at this point?
Yes. And it's really almost terrifying in a way. Just it's overwhelming.
Too much power. Yeah.
It is. It's too much power. And a lot of these things that in the past, you've been limited by your CMS. I think it's a reason a lot of brands were drawn to headless experiences because they wanted to have all these choices, but cost of ownership of headless is pretty wild and not for everyone. But now it is like anybody can do anything. It's like the ultimate democratization. Like you don't even have to be an engineer to build crazy stuff now. And it's pretty cool. It's really exciting.
Are you totally Claude pilled and it's Claude all in for you? And then, or are you also, do you still kind of go over to the other side and look at codecs, or what's in your, super AI nerds would say, what's your stack? So what kind of tech stack are you using here?
So I would say on the freelance side of my life, definitely all in on Claude, all in on everything. We are a Unilever brand at OLLY, so we have a little more governance, a lot more governance. And I think rules and requirements around what we can and cannot do, what we can and cannot integrate. So we're moving slowly and thoughtfully into that space, making good decisions, hopefully, not just a bunch of short-term decisions, but really kind of trying to look at the full landscape, where we are now, what we're using now, where we think we'll be in a year. And honestly, not over-investing in any one thing at this point, just because it really does change week to week. And if you go all in and all in on something and then a week later it's like irrelevant, you waste a lot of money and resources. So we're just going carefully, I think, very thoughtfully.
Yeah. So then within Claude, there's just kind of using it in the chat mode, and then there's co-work, and then there's code. Where are you on that spectrum of how you're and maybe this is a question for the freelance side, but when you're interacting with Shopify and doing some of your hardcore stuff, which of those are you're working on?
It depends on the brand and it depends on the store. One of the things I think about a lot as we talk about AI in different conversations is that there are a lot of brands that are far more traditional and rudimentary than you would ever believe. I mean, there are brands. I've worked on a brand that is a pretty big brand who was like, we don't care what our store looks like. We just need the cart to work. And so I think sometimes the table stakes are so low for some brands that they're not even halfway there yet. And the problems you're trying to solve in those brands are very basic problems. They're not necessarily like, how do we take this integration to the next level? Like, how do we, do all these crazy things? It's really more of just like a function of what the brand needs from you. So it really depends on the brand. I mean, I've got a couple that are very future facing and really excited and want to see, like how much have we increased our visibility by doing this, and how do we know that this is true? How do we know these measurements are true? And then I've got brands that are like, can you just make sure our site works all the time? And so there's quite a scale there. I think there's
a wide spectrum
in there. Yeah.
All right. Side quest is officially over. I think most people know about OLLY, but give us just in case someone's we have a lot of audio listeners and they may not. So it's OLLY. And so tell folks how you describe the brand at a cocktail party.
Absolutely. If you have ever walked into a Target and you have turned right and you have walked past the first end cap in Target, that is where we live. That is our homeland. We're square bottles, gummy vitamins. We have a lot of different products, but we're known for our gummy vitamins. They taste amazing. They work really well. And we do have distinctive packaging. So that's usually, I think, what people, when you say we're in the square bottle, they're like, oh yeah. Oh, okay. Got it. There are a lot of other OLLYs out there. There's dog food. There's a toothpaste company now, but we are OLLY, and we're in the supplement space, just having a great time.
Yeah, and then when we talked about your role, D2C, I understand that's my people, and then MarTech. So, is that meaning we're doing a little ad tech in here, and you're kind of into the retail media network world, or what's embedded in that part of your title?
I try to stay out of paid. I do get involved in it sometimes. I think most of it is really D2C and data related. I do a lot of first party data work, kind of integrating that information and data into other pieces of the business. We are primarily a CPG brand at the end of the day. So the vast majority of our revenue comes from in-store, comes from mass, Walmart, Target, grocery, drug. D2C is a pretty small part of our business overall, but yet still important. Amazon also very important. And now I think what's really exciting is that, before a year ago, it's like, oh, D2C is just, 7-8% of our business. It's not that much, whatever. Now it's the point of entry for discoverability for the brand as we move into this world of LLM discoverability. And so now the stakes are much higher, and there's a lot more eyes on that part of the business, just because, that's where people are going to go when they start asking questions to ChatGPT on how can they do this? What should they take? They can't sleep. What should they do? So it's really exciting.
Even if the consumer doesn't go there, whatever agent you're using, and if you think about, okay, I'm an agent and I'm trying to help someone find vitamins, and I need to find the authority on this thing called OLLY, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to OLLY. And if I can't find what I'm looking for, then I'm going to go to Amazon, and they're going to block me. Then I'm going to go to Walmart and Target, right? And as far as I know Walmart's thrown the doors wide open. Target's kind of in the middle somewhere. They're kind of frenemies, and then So
Walmart's on the forefront. I mean, it's honestly it's really impressive.
Yeah, they've done a great job. But this is like the most important part, and you got to it very quickly, which is awesome. When I talk to CPGs, there's this, it takes 2 or 3 conversations, and then finally they say, I've literally had them, there's like this cognitive dissonance that hits. They're like, you mean this website I've ignored for so long, and I threw a where to buy button on there and no one cares about it, is now the most important thing? I was like, I don't know if it's the most important thing, but it is the most influential. If you want to solve a lot of your nightmares you're telling me about, the crazy Reddit stuff and all this kind of stuff, you're the brand authority via your website, and that is your, on that PDP now is your mechanism for countering all that. And there's finally an awakening there, and then they're like, well, that's going to be, and then they realize that they actually have a fair amount of control over that, and then they get kind of excited. So a lot of them are kind of like, there's this hopeless, like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go to Walmart and convince them to change this thing, Sparky, in some holistic way, and I'll never get them to do that. And it's like, good news, Sparky is just an LLM, and it's consuming the same information. Even Sparky your site actually matters to Sparky and Rufus, interestingly enough. And a lot of people kind of it's really hard because we've lived in these wholesale DTC lanes for so long. There's this thing that cuts across them, and it is the data from your website, which is pretty wild.
It really forces you to look at your business in an omni-channel way, even if you didn't want to do that, or if you're not internally structured to do that. A lot of brands are not, where, it is very siloed by channel, and the channels, there is some channel competition and channel friction. This almost removes that entirely from the equation. And I feel like brands have to react to that quickly and restructure in a way that supports that, because otherwise you do kind of have this like infighting, and it's pointless because it is definitely an all boats rise kind of world right now.
So you've obviously ended up at a great endpoint, but let's talk about your agentic commerce journey. How did you get here? Did someone at OLLY say, hey, Jennifer, our Google traffic's a little weird, can you go look at this? Or did you read Retailgentic and you're like, whoa, I need to hop on what Scot's saying, or like what leading the witness? Or how did you realize that this was something that, as the DTC practitioner, you needed to get in front of?
I mean, I'm out in the world a lot. I'm at a lot of conferences. I feel like you're constantly in the space consuming information, like podcasts and in webinars and email newsletters and all of these things. And it's hard to miss that. Like, it's hard to miss like, whoa, this is the way we're going. And I think it really came to head probably like about a year ago, like maybe midsummer last year, where it was kind of like, oh, okay, now it's not just talk anymore. We've got to figure out an actual plan with tactics. And that's when you start looking at like, what are the controllables we can control? Like you said earlier, it's your site, it's your content, it's content that lives on your site. There are things that are harder to control, like crazy Reddit, like some of the things that exist out in the world that people are saying about your brand that's less controllable. But we made it a priority to really focus on the things that we own, the spaces we own, the content we own. And there's so much of AEO that is really just doing business well. It's really just good SEO. So we started with that because we didn't want to go overboard in one direction, one space, and then find out that was going to be irrelevant in the future, because it really just felt like, I don't know, nobody really knows what we should do next. So let's focus on the things we know we can do that will have an impact for LLMs and for humans and make the site a better experience, clean up our schemas, clean up our data structure, all of those things that are just going to be good for your brand anyway. So that's where we started, really, really in that space, restructuring some things like putting content into FAQs, I think, is such like an easy slam dunk that any brand can do. And one of the things we've done is we've added FAQs to our PDPs. And honestly, it's the same information that's already on the page. It's not anything new. It's just in a different format.
It's in a bite-sized chunk. Yeah. And it's packaged in a nice little like, boom. You have this question, are we vegan? Boom.
Exactly. I mean, you could have read the paragraph and found that out, but not everybody does. And I mean, LLMs obviously love FAQ format, but what we found is that humans like it too. So, we're kind of measuring things on both sides of like what's impacting LLM discoverability, but then also what's impacting human understanding and education around like what our products are, because they're supplements. Not everybody knows what everything does. So there is definitely an educational component to what we sell that's really important. So measuring both I think when content is expensive and resource heavy to create, the best place to start is in the space where it checks both boxes. And that's what we've really been focused on, I think, like this first year into this new AI world.
Phase one is take your existing content and gussy it up, get it kind of like into the right format. Frequently asked question is a very popular one. Another best practice is take your attributes and make sure they're in metadata. Did you do that?
Yes.
And then, yeah. Okay. As a Shopify developer, I had a feeling you were all over that. And then they said, well, you can do that, but then there's this, and I forget the Shopify vernacular. There's an agentic product catalog-y thing they want you to put it in. And I assume you've done that too.
It's actually really, really cool because that is one of my favorite things to talk about. But I'm gonna tell you what, it's the least exciting thing to talk about internally. Like people are like, that is the most boring thing I've ever heard.
Well, your people are here. Let's talk. Let's go into it. Yeah.
we worked with a partner that kind of specializes in catalog feed enhancement, and that was, I think, like such a huge unlock for us because we could do that, but it would take a lot of time, and we're highly regulated, so we have to be really, really careful about what we say, claims wise, and kind of all of this stuff in the science space. We just have to be really careful. And basically, this partner could ingest our public catalog and create all these additional attributes for us, and then just like literally push it back into Shopify. And none of them are really customer facing. And again, a lot of those things, they're things that already exist, but they're not things that Google ever cared about. Like Google never read if your product was NSF certified or not. They wanted to know what color it was or like what size it is. So, I mean, the opportunity to create all of these digital attributes now that, are beyond what Google has asked for, required, or could read for all these years is really exciting too. Almost scary because sometimes it's like, oh my God, like the attributes are endless. Like we could put anything in here. But we actually work with a partner that did that for us. And so they kind of ran it through their model and made suggestions on like, these are the attributes that we think will move the needle on discoverability for this product and this product type. And that's been, I mean, probably one of the lowest resource projects we've worked on that relating to AEO. And probably, in my opinion, probably the highest impact.
So there's also a million vendors that do AEO, GEO, and this kind of thing. The biggest one is Profound out there, and they've got this. But you're inside Unilever, so I imagine that may actually live. What people tend to realize is it actually lives up a level into like the bigger marketing, and it's usually company wide, not brand specific. Did you get pulled into that part of things, or does that happen up in the parent company?
Actually, we have our own instance of Profound via Unilever, and it is pretty exciting. It's really interesting. I think it's cool to look at because honestly, their UI is like beautiful. Harder to take that information and be like, okay, here's the checklist of things we're going to do.
Yeah, it's not super actionable.
It's not. It's hard. It's somebody has to analyze and digest that and kind of regurgitate it into tactics. And you have to have somebody that can do that for you. Otherwise, you'll literally just look at it all day and be like, that's so cool. That's so interesting. It's got these, beautiful logos and everything. And one of the things I do like about Profound is that like our business, we're in supplements. So there's a lot of different segments. There's like multis. That's one group of competitors. There's gut health. That's a completely separate group of competitors. Women's wellness, like every segment that we're in has its own sort of set of competitors that are very different. So it's cool because it does break that down by segment. So you can see kind of like, here are all the segments that we play in. Here's where we're winning. Here's where we need work. Here's where we're getting destroyed by our competition. And here are some segments maybe that aren't priorities for us that we can kind of back burner for now and really focus on the ones that are like win categories for us. So I do like how it breaks that down. And it is really interesting, but it's also, I don't know if you've talked about this in the show before, but their data sources are very mysterious, and they have hundreds of data sources and they're all under NDA. So it's like, you're using this, but you're like, but how do you know? Like, how do you know?
Yeah, they use panel data, and panel data is what the kids would call super sus. Everyone says it's like super permissioned, but then as you dig into it, a lot of it leaks through Chrome extensions that have one function, and then they're grabbing your data, or Android devices that are doing stuff. So yeah, that's where it gets a little fuzzy.
It is. And we work, I'm not going to say the vendor's name. We work with a vendor that does data. They're great. And we found out that they are one of Profound's data sources. And we're like, oh, cool. Okay. So I think there's a lot of trust but verify in this space, which is why, again, like I think we've sort of dabbled in different areas because we want to validate these opinions, experiences, suggestions against each other. So like if we see in Profound a specific recommendation, if we see in Content Square a specific recommendation and we see it also maybe in an Invive, like we know this is probably good and it's probably one that's good to take action on. But again, it's like everybody's data sources are different and you really just kind of have to like look at the resources you have and figure out the best way to spend them on what you have to work with. So that's kind of, I would say, been our approach. We're very thoughtful. We want to stay human-centered. I think that's a really important thing for us. Our products are very personal. They're ingestible. They impact your health and your kids' health. We don't want to play a game. Like we want to make sure that the product that the customer buys is the right product for them at the end of the day. That's kind of how I would say we ground ourselves in that human-centeredness as our approach.
Yeah, a lot of the AEO, this is not a Profound thing, but some of them, they kind of have these best practices that most brands I know wouldn't do the best practices. They're like kind of, well, go create your own Reddit account and put a bunch of good stuff out there. It's like,
no.
Or they'll say, take your customer service people and go engage with the Redditors. And we all know that does not work. It's like just hitting the hornet's nest with a flaming wand.
You cannot control what you put on Reddit. I mean, there are brands I feel like that really can engage on Reddit in a productive and cool way. Like I have a friend that works at Sonos, the speaker company, and they have this massive Reddit community because it's like people who love their speakers, people who are like trying to do this installation thing, or maybe they bought some parts from somebody, but they're missing some pieces. So it's like a practical application on Reddit. It's not just like, I hate this or I love this. Like it's really a full community. Not every brand can do that. Like not every brand's product fits that mold, but they do, and that's great. But it's much harder for other brands.
Cool. Anything else on that before we go into? So this is kind of like the first wave of things you did, and anything else you did in kind of like that first wave?
Well, one thing I just want to say, it's sort of related to our philosophical approach to AEO at OLLY, is that there are. And I've seen this in a lot of brands. Like there's a lot of pressure to do something with AI, and there's a lot of pressure to go back to your board and be like, "This is what we're doing with AI, and this is how many monies we made." And sometimes we're overlooking like basic integrations and automations that like we probably should have done like 5 years ago. So I don't want to overlook the tools that you have and making sure that those are integrated with each other in a way that makes sense. Because then if you try to add AI on top of that, like everything's going to be disconnected. So I think most brands have opportunity that like predates AI to integrate and to kind of build out these like workflows and automations and things that are completely AI related. Like maybe they're your creative workflow software and your DAM, and like maybe those aren't connected. There's, I think there are a lot of things, especially when you're in a business where channels can be kind of siloed, where you have things that are just wildly disconnected. And especially if you're omni-channel, I think it's worth it to take a good hard look, everything you have in your like creative stack, your marketing stack, your paid stack, like everything, and make sure those are as connected as they can be before you try to like sprinkle AI magic on top of it.
If you're clever, you can use AI as an excuse to get it prioritized.
That is true.
Within reason, yes.
That is absolutely true.
So you did all this and you put it on your PDP, and then let's talk about measurability. How were you able to measure that this was getting into the engines, that you connected those dots?
We do use Profound. So I think that's, being able to measure kind of that real-time impact, whether you believe the measurement or not, is really helpful. At least directionally, it's going to be mostly correct. And we use Invive as well. And so we're kind of using both of those to measure impact by product. So that is helpful. There's so many things that I'm skeptical about in this space that, our feeling is like to not get distracted by short-term results, short-term impact, and to stay focused on kind of the long game of what we are ultimately trying to accomplish here. So I think that, it's easy to get reactive in here and build a deck that's like, oh man, look at this. We did this and this happened. We did this and this happened. We did this and this happened. But really, we have to look at it from a much longer time span of like overall impact and looking at like brand awareness and household penetration and kind of these other measurements we've always had. We have OKRs that we set for the business at the beginning of the year. Those are still our OKRs. Like, we're just using AI to get there faster and to get there better and more efficiently. We're not changing the goals because we have AI. We're keeping the goals and we're just doing a better job getting to them. And so I think there's like a constant philosophical check-in that you have to have within a brand and within the group that's working on AI in your brand, and just make sure you're making decisions for the right reasons and not doing AI to do AI, which is like my biggest fear. Because then you make dumb decisions and then you're not really thinking long-term. You're not really thinking in a customer-focused way. And there's so many things you can do, but like at the end of the day, do those really matter to people? Because people are using LLMs. LLMs are going to know if you're delivering bad results or results that are irrelevant to people because they're not going to buy or they're not going to click. So all of that stuff is going to come back around and get you if you are taking shortcuts, if you are kind of trying to game the system or play some sort of game. It is like the old world of SEO where people were putting like white type in, on PDPs. So like
keyword jamming and all the things. Yeah.
Gross. Like, that's what we do not want to do. Like, I feel like that's the cautionary tale there. Like, let's not do that. Let's just do it well, make good products, make sure everything is clean, make sure your house is clean, and, then do the things that you can do to get that stuff read well by LLMs.
Yeah. On the measurability, are you thinking of, so number one, you don't want to do all this work to improve your product catalog, and your PDP is hindering it in some way. So there's like a crawlability of your PDP, and your basic AEO GEO tool is very good at just kind of telling you that or not. And then now, are you actually putting active prompts in there and looking for the women's gummy and making sure that your AI visibility is high, or you're just kind of like seeing it in the panel data, like an AI visibility score? Like, what? Get a little more specific on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we're doing both. So, in the Shopify knowledge bank, you can do a lot of that kind of like pre-prompting type of activity, but in Profound, you can do that too. So, I think that is really important to make sure that those things are sort of like going the same direction. Profound is probably more detailed in how you can, like I said earlier, like how you can break it down by segment, whereas Shopify is more kind of like, here are prompts, like here are some things, and they're kind of all mixed together. But I would say too, like, our customers, millennial women, like the vast majority, and the agentic traffic and agentic commerce we've seen so far is really small. So I don't want to go crazy doing one thing, but I also want to make sure we're building, like, we're very foundation focused right now. Like, what is going to be the foundation of what discoverability is going to look like in the next year? Like, are we executing the basics well and consistently without getting a little too kind of bogged down in the details? And, building out like an AI agent that can manage your inventory and place orders for you. Like, that's great. And that's super convenient and wonderful. And other things you can do with AI on your site outside of discoverability, just to make things easier for yourself. Plugs great into Shopify. It's, it works great. But again, like, executing the basics, I think, is still the most important thing.
Yeah. So many people haven't, that it actually is, you just doing the basics well and tightly makes you a leader. So that's we're kind of in that early phase where all you have to do is that, and it also it starts compounding, because you get into the web search part now, and then in 6 months they're training on that data. Well, now you're in all the LLMs long-term memory with the payload of really good product information. And it's kind of like something in your short and long-term memory is an analogy I use. And if it's in both, then you'll kind of like remember it forever. And then it starts to leak into the non-D2C part. Have you actually seen any evidence of that where, and I'm sure your wholesale colleagues come to you, Another thing is you've probably established, I'm going to kind of be predictive again and say, inside the company, everyone's like, who knows anything about this stuff? And they're like, well, call Jennifer. So you're probably the go-to gal on all things AI at this point. And I imagine, so let's say there's someone in OLLY that owns the Walmart and the Amazon relationships. We see this all the time where the artist previously known as Rufus, now I'll just use Alexa, will say some pretty wacky stuff, and then Sparky is like kind of a bit unhinged on what it will say. So they'll be running around and they'll notice that, and they'll probably come to you. Are you starting to see evidence of this having an impact outside of the DTC part and over on the wholesale side?
I think a little bit. Again, I would say I feel like a lot of CPG brands are far more traditional than people would think. And buyers at Walmart and buyers at Target are a lot more traditional than people think. And there are incredible technical teams at both Walmart and Target kind of working on these projects, but they're not always as connected to like the day-to-day business of buying as you would think. So I think it's still developing. We're very close to both Walmart and Target. So when they do well, we do well. So I think we want to support, even in discoverability, like if we're coming up on Walmart.com and ChatGPT, like that's still a win. We love it. That's great. And it's also like kind of a touchy area to navigate, I think, too, in your relationships with retailers of like, are you supporting their business? Are you supporting your D2C business? Are you supporting your Amazon business? Because I think your retailers can get competitive in that space, even if you are not, even if you as a brand are not. So, I think it's like a careful space right now to navigate, to just make sure you're trying to kind of keep everybody happy and make them happy with the results that you're showing them, but not necessarily kind of trying to like cross those lines.
One example that, again, kind of within this realm you can control, I like your framework there, is you've done all this work on frequently asked questions. Take your facts and make sure they're getting into the PDP on Amazon, Walmart, Target, and all the places you're selling. Have you guys kind of done that step, or is that maybe a phase 2?
We have. No, I think that's a great, I think content wise, making sure that you're leveraging the same content across channels is really important. Amazon as well, like if you've got something that's really driving discoverability in one channel, you want to have that in all channels. So that, I think that's another place where some of those silos have to break down a little bit in terms of content, and making sure, again, like you're kind of all playing on the same team, that you're all sharing what's working across channels, and also testing across channels. Like our channels do not all have the same exact customer profile. So, there are going to be places where some things work really well and some things don't work really well. And there are channels where we do really well with certain segments, like we sell a lot of multis, but we don't in this channel. So I think we kind of have to look at that too, of like, what does the business overall like look like? And are we supporting the things that are the strengths in that business by channel? And that sort of takes some of the competition, and I think, and friction out of it too, when you're like, hey, look, this is the product line we do the best with at Walmart. Let's really focus on driving this on Walmart. And on this channel, we're going to really focus on this segment because it's really strong in this, in this channel. So some of that, I think you kind of have to you have to break down the business in each channel too, and then figure out how you're going to support that by channel.
I've been working on this for 30 years. Channel, there's kind of definitely cross-channel optimization, but at the end of the day, if you really want to move the needle, like really understanding the audience, it's all consumer behavior, and every consumer in every different environment is very different and a different profile, and that.
Yeah, totally agree.
So that's kind of where you guys are next. What's kind of on your Jennifer's plate wish list for as we for the rest of the year? Like, what have you knocked off everything, or what are some of the other big chunks you want to get to?
Content's slow. It's hard. It takes time to make content. So I think we have a lot of runway still ahead of us on the things that we can control and the content we want to create. I think one of the things I'm seeing right now that I find really, really fascinating are some of these brands that are coming out and saying like, we don't use any AI in our creative. And that's kind of like becoming a selling point. And I don't know if you saw Ronnie Chang's commencement speech at Harvard, where it was just like FAI, like that was like the whole theme of the conversation. And it was kind of like, he was saying to them, like, you're like, the mandate of you genius people graduating from Harvard is to destroy AI. And I think this like backlash and sort of this counterculture AI piece is really fascinating. Again, I feel like we're in a really safe space because we're like doing things that make sense, but we're not like going too far. And I think there are some brands maybe that have gone a little bit too far, especially on the creative side. So I am kind of like waiting to see what that backlash ends up looking like and if it gains traction or if like the convenience sort of takes over. From one of the things he said is like, the journey is not just how we acquire skills. Like the journey is the purpose. And so if you're using AI to acquire skills, then what are you leaving on the table journey wise? Like what is your purpose? And it's like, you could like really go pretty far with that, but I do think there's going to be sort of this like counterbalance to it going too far. Also, I think the data center thing is really fascinating as well. So there's a city right outside of LA that actually voted no data centers in our city. And so that I think is really fascinating too, because I don't really know how much people know about like the environmental impact of these data centers, like what it takes to run one. I live in San Francisco, and I was having a conversation with somebody last week of like, we're like in the AI bubble. So like what we think people think and talk about AI all the time is probably not accurate because that's what we do all the time. I don't know. I think there is going to be this like element of pushback and counterculture that'll be really interesting to see how it plays out.
I'll have to go. I just made a note to go watch that.
It's great. It's only 20 minutes long.
I saw the one where Eric Schmidt got booed off.
Yes,
that one was like and he tried to fight it, and it was exactly like jumping into the fray on Reddit. That did not go well for him.
Oof, yeah. No, nothing. Hard pass.
Well, awesome. Well, how can if folks really enjoyed the conversation and want to learn more, do you publish on LinkedIn? Are you big on TikTok? Where do you spend your time as an online person?
I try to stay off TikTok as much as I can.
So it's just Jennifer Peters, and then I found throwing a little OLLY in there got me there very quickly.
Yeah, if you look at Jennifer Peters and OLLY on LinkedIn, I'm there. There's probably some stuff out there on YouTube. Who knows how old it is, but yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me.
Awesome, Jennifer. Really appreciate it. We'll have to have you back in a year and see what other kind of magical things you've figured out.
Let's see what kind of weird stuff happens.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Rate, and share to stay up to date with Retailgentic, your guide to the future of AI shopping agents.